Hey, this is The Rest. I'm Joel Kovacs. The rest of my thoughts. This is the rest of our church, and hopefully, with a little bit of grace, some rest for our souls. Disclaimer, this is not a sermon. This is not a sermon. These are my thoughts and interests, and these are your thoughts and interests. The rest is a time for open and safe opinions, dialogues. I'm really hopeful that who you're going to hear from today as my special guest is going to be so uplifting to you and helpful to you. And we are doing a 4-week series here with the podcast on leadership. And so today I do have an opening rant and I have my footnotes, but I'm actually going to conflate those, put those together. And the whole time I'm going to have my special guest, Mr. David Holladay, who's sitting here with me now. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great.
David's here, and he is here to discuss leadership with us. And I'm going to let you hear from him a little bit later. His background and where he's coming from, and then he's going to download on us about leadership, which I can't wait for you guys to hear. David, how you feeling today?
Feeling good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
David, you're from, what state are you from originally?
Originally Kentucky.
Yeah, we can hear it. Just keep talking. We can hear it.
There's a little bit there.
There's a little bit. It
comes out whenever I get a little loose.
You get a little loose. And you spent how long were you in Nashville?
I spent 6 years in Nashville.
6 years. Mm-hmm. What's it like down there? Do they talk, is it Southern accents down there, or is it mixed? Nashville's kind of like Columbus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little more Southern. A little more Southern. When we moved down to Nashville, we were wondering what it was going to be like, because it's a little further south than where we were in Kentucky. I kind of considered us on the border when we were in Kentucky and Louisville. We moved south to Nashville, and you hear about everybody, the old bless your heart.
Bless your heart. What's the translation?
My fear was that the translation was a stab in the back after it was done.
Yes.
But when we got down there, we actually realized people are really nice, genuinely nice.
Some actually mean that.
Yeah.
But definitely it is for some people, it's code for you're an idiot, right?
Sure.
Right? Bless your heart, you stupid fool, or whatever. I don't know. That's what I heard. You just kind of throw it in all the time when you run into someone who doesn't, you don't know what to say. So bless your heart, which means I'm moving on.
Well, bless your heart, Joel. You got it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I feel blessed. So David, it comes from the corporate world, tons of influence and experience in the corporate world. And you're going to hear a lot about that. But I'm going to dive in with David on the opening rant. And like I said, again, with my footnotes. And so the opening rant is usually just kind of something that's stirring about, and I want to talk about it. And then the footnotes is that stuff that's left over from the message, because anytime you do a message, there's more that you leave out than you put in. And so there's so many extra pieces. And I'm actually going to put these two together in a collaboration today. We're going to put them together. I don't know if you know this, David, but collaboration in the music world is very, very popular right now. People collab.
That's right.
So you get, Justin Bieber and Ed Sheeran together doing the thing, showing up in the studio. So we're going to collab today, but we're just going to put it all in what we call the opening rant. So here it goes. So this is my opening rant, and we're going to talk for a couple of minutes about the series that I'm doing called Leaving Scarcity, which the whole idea behind Leaving Scarcity is that I heard and read someone talk about this idea of basically having money be your God, create a culture or community of scarcity, right? Where it's all about getting it and taking. And so what I've done is I've tried to, in this series, kind of give people that creative space to go, okay, what would it be like if I was living in a place that was really defined by taking and getting what's mine and being my own God, versus going to a different city where there's a different God, and that God is marked by a totally different way of living, essentially giving as opposed to taking. And so wrote this little screenplay thing that we had multiple different people act out, and you can watch that in the Sunday morning sermon. But the kind of the recap, and to dive into this a little deeper, is that what we find is that in Eden, this place that was built on generosity and through generosity by God, that a liar enters into that space, and a garden that is beautiful and has everything, there's a snake that comes in and tells Adam and Eve a lie. Mm-hmm. And even though they're surrounded and they're living in generosity, they believe in the spirit and the king of scarcity. You need to take. You should get your own thing. You should do your own deal. And so you see that you have a God that's marked by generosity, and you have an agent in the world that is trying to be God and getting people to do the opposite of what he did: steal from one another, take from one another, live for yourself. It's just so interesting, David. What are your thoughts on just that generally? I mean, when you think about it, one of the things about art and even about animated movies, right, is it can create this world that is so much of a caricature, so it's a little bit exaggerated. But if you step back, you almost go, I don't know. That I think that is kind of the world that we live in.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, if you think even in the creative world, whether it's in production or any of these things that we're doing, starting a new company, entrepreneurship, when we get in that position of trying to protect what we have and hold on to it, and living in this scarcity space, it just shuts the flow down.
Yes.
And when we have the opportunity to open up and bring others into the process, you can see, and we talk about trying to get in the flow in those creative spaces, and I'm not sure people really understand the depth of that statement.
Yeah. What does it mean to be in the flow?
Yeah.
What river's running through you?
That's right.
Right. I think a lot of people think that the flow, or whatever it means, that I'm getting my thing together. Right?
Right.
There's so many angles on how scarcity, if you're living in that place, every single thing you do is tainted by selfishness.
That's right.
Everything you do. I think that it's one of those deals, and I'm going to talk about it this week. I don't want to get too much into it, but if we're serving and we're living in scarcity, we may not know it. A lot of times we don't. We wouldn't necessarily willfully say, I bow down to myself and to taking things from me at the expense of everybody else. But we might be doing it whether we know it or not. And so sometimes we need to some type of exaggerated siren that says, this a problem for you.
Yeah.
And this could destroy your life. But I think it's true, right? We can sometimes conflate this feeling of I'm doing great, I'm getting mine, with that's the Spirit of God, moving, man. But what's our disposition? How do we view our jobs as agents of God in the world?
Yeah, you think about the people that you really like being around.
Yeah, that's great.
And those that give power to your life or help with your own creativity and the process that you're going through. It's those that are free with their ideas or free with their emotions even. Sharing what they have.
Yeah. Last week on the podcast, I had Roy Hall. He's a football player, Ohio State, NFL player. And his whole thing on leadership was the word assistance. He's like, and you should go back and listen to it if you're listening to this, you didn't hear episode 5. It was great. And he told the story about Steph Curry, who is the number 1 3-point shooter now. He just crossed the line and went to the top, and how when he won, he sent every person that gave him his assists, passed him the ball, a Rolex, to
Fantastic.
say, I'm not here because it's just me. I'm here because you assisted me, and that's leadership. That leadership is actually viewing that your job is to hand things to people, to set people up so that they can be successful. It is what an amazing idea. And in sports makes it simple. My kids, I mean, you talk about, I have a 5th grader who's playing basketball. Hey, it's not all about you scoring. It's about the team winning. And so if you assist and pass it and they score, That's a big deal. And they do actually have in the record books, they have assists. But people think it's all about scoring more than it is about assisting. Some people don't, and it doesn't always play to people. And I'm not saying scoring's bad necessarily, but man, the attitude of what is it? That's what Christ is. I'm assisting you.
Yeah.
Go and assist people.
You know, I'll steal a little bit from the leadership section.
Yeah,
of
that's
this.
fine. Sorry. Yeah, I know we just,
This is great. The number one thing that people are searching for most of the time in life is doing things that are bigger than themselves, having an impact, leaving a legacy. We hear it talked about in many different ways. The only way that we're going to be successful at having an impact that's bigger than ourselves is by being vulnerable enough to put our idea on the table and have it improved by others.
Right. That's great.
And so that is the culture that I'm searching for when I'm building a team. Is a group of people they're not just their own Michael Jordan, although that's important. We want people that recognize their strengths and capabilities, but they're willing to put the idea on the table and have it improved by others.
Yeah, and the intellectual property conversation, I want this to be mine. You know, I don't want someone to steal my idea, or best idea wins.
Yeah.
Best idea wins. And I'm going to put mine out there, and you're going to put yours out there, and we're going to create a culture of let's share with one another.
Yeah.
As opposed to the competitive shadow world of what you're not really saying, but what you're up to, building your own kingdom, taking the credit instead of giving it. And I'll tell you, man, I mean, it is a mindset. It is a place that we go to. What I love about the Genesis narrative and some of my footnotes is there's so much you can get into. Some of the stuff you have to get into in a very theological sense. But so as soon as Adam and Eve they realize that their world is falling apart, and they realize that they're vulnerable. The narrative is that they suddenly know that they're naked. So it's like before they didn't necessarily. Vulnerability is about honesty, right? It's about hey, I have weaknesses. I'm going to show you my weaknesses, and I'm trusting that you won't hurt me, and you got my back, and I got your back, so we're going to help each other. It's about community. It's about all those things. Well, they weren't vulnerable in the sense that they weren't physically vulnerable. They didn't know something was wrong. God told them that they would be vulnerable if they did the wrong thing. They didn't know what that meant, so they go and do the wrong thing, and then they realize, oh, now I'm vulnerable.
Right.
Whatever that means, that their chest is exposed, that they could get hurt. I don't know exactly what it means. Suddenly their image changed, whatever that is. And God comes along looking for them in the cool of the day to walk with him, thinking we're going to do what we've always done. He knows that they didn't do what they're supposed to do, but he's still going to go do what they've always done. Generous. He's still giving. Let's keep walking. Right? I mean, You know how it is when your kid messes up and you're like, oh, it's hard to be in the normal space.
Right.
It's hard to just keep being dad, and you need to be. There's time for correction, and he does that. But he shows up again.
Yeah.
I think a big part of generosity is just continuing to show up. Another part is then they cover themselves with leaves because they know that they're vulnerable, or figs or whatever it says. And then he comes, and what does he do? He covers them with the skins of animals. He gives them more. He fixes it right away. So that's Genesis 3:15 is the first proto-evangelium, the first gospel. He takes their leaves and he covers them with the skins of animal, which means that's the first thing. The implications, right? Something had to die. I'm sure you've heard this before. Something had to die to give them skins of an animal, right? So something dies. So he's teaching them the way you fix this is serious.
Consequences.
And it costs a lot. Something has to die to fix you. But guess what? Here you go. I'm going to cover you up. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
More generosity. And then I think another connection that I made that just didn't have time to dive into fully, Cain and Abel, who I've heard one thinker say are the first humans, in the sense that they don't just come out of the ground.
Right.
And then they're born of a woman and of a man. So they're the first ones, I guess, whatever that means, maybe with the belly button, but real humans have belly buttons. And so they're there. And then Abel brings his crops, or no, his sacrifice to God, which is, he's a herdsman or a shepherd. So he brings an animal. So it makes sense that he would bring an animal. Well, I guess Cain is like a farmer or whatever, and he brings vegetation or something like that. And God tells Cain, that's not the right sacrifice. Which a lot of people think that like maybe, that God is saying you're not a good guy. I think it's an instructive moment where he's going, I like that you gave me these things that in your world matter, but you don't decide what matters. Sacrifice to God is a big deal.
Right.
It has to be expensive. And you make that stuff and it's expensive to you, but you need to understand that it's more maybe than you thought. So he gets it because remember what I did for your parents? I killed an animal. This is serious. You got to bring to me something that has life in it that gets lost for that to be enough for you to understand what it means to atone for sin. It's a big deal. Now I did it for you and I'm going to do it. He did it for them. He's still going to do it, but he's teaching them about how important it is. So then Cain gets mad because he's thinking, God doesn't like me. Because he got instructed. Isn't that interesting? Do you see that with your kids?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like me? I'm not good enough for you? No, you're good enough for me. He's in relationship with Cain and Abel. You're still Cain. I care. I'm here. We're talking. But you got to get better. This can't be. What are your thoughts? I mean, there's so much there, but it's more generosity in terms of he's teaching them.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about the sacrifice and how many times we see that over and over in the Word. And he comes back around to it in the ultimate sacrifice with giving his only son for us.
Exactly.
And it is not of inconsequential circumstance.
Right. It's serious. It's big. And you think about your life. Have you ever been a part of anything that really matters that didn't cost a lot of your time, of your attention, of your words, your energy, your money? Every single moment when you work, you're sacrificing because you're giving something up for a better future. And so to understand that the more you give, the better the future, that's the picture of Jesus on the cross. Everything's given so we have a better future. And so to me, it's like, this is what's happening with Genesis. No, it's really expensive. You're in trouble. It takes a lot to fix it. I'll fix it for you, but you need to understand it because now you are going to go do that. You're going to go and continue to be that picture of improving the world through sacrifice and giving of yourself and improving the world. I don't know. That's just like everything about the narrative to me is generous. The God who gives, continues to give, continues to give, continues to give, and we murder each other. In a way, it's just really sad. The bringing of this together is last week when we opened up the podcast. It was the day after that the Ukraine was attacked by Russia, and Roy and I prayed for Russia and for Ukraine, and maybe we should do that too again.
Yeah.
Would you mind just praying for that right now?
Not at all.
Just take a minute and let's pray for that situation.
Father, we just thank you that these are your people. You've created this world, this earth, this humanity in your image, and that's not just one of us, but it's all of us. And Lord, you care for every one of these individuals. And Father, we just pray that your hand moves mightily among the nations, that you bring wisdom and understanding to this situation so that we can make the right decisions to help this group of people live in your image. Lord, we just thank you that your hand is there. You care for what each person is going through.
Yeah, and Father, thank you so much for your heart in the matter, that your heart is broken by the loss, your heart is broken by the tragedy that is unfolding there, and that you have done all things you can to, in some way, shape, or form, bring about a new situation for all of us. I pray, God, that people would follow you and they would experience the goodness of the church, your people, and that through it, God, that it would be solved quickly and be brought to a cease as soon as possible, and that you and your church would show up in a very real, bold way and proclaim you as King ultimately, and exhibit the gifts and the life of being a follower of Jesus to those people through love and through charity and through mercy and grace. God, just help be the God of provision for them in this moment as well. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
On a little bit of like a lighter note, you get this, you start to see this picture of, worlds clashing and this evil, tyrannical emperor just moving in with tanks and stealing and taking. And that's what this series is about. That's a city of scarcity. I mean, the Soviet Union and communism and Stalin is just all about taking and stealing from people and trying to figure out things our own way instead of seeing people as who they are. And it didn't work. And it's like, you thought, okay, didn't we get past all that? And now we're doing more. And it's really sad. And I don't know why we're surprised by it, but I'm surprised by it. I don't know. I sometimes think, aren't we past all this? But we shouldn't be surprised by it. Without Christ, the heart of man can go to inexhaustible depths of evil, and that's been proven. And we see with this leader, Putin, I read this article, actually my wife shared this with me yesterday. She said, did you see that article about, I think, Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots? So there's a story, you can go and just Google this. NFL.com has an article, and it's actually kind of funny, and then it's actually like, it's disturbing. But basically the story is that after the third Super Bowl that the Patriots won, Robert Kraft had his ring. I think his name is Robert Kraft. I'm hoping that his name is. I think it's Robert Kraft. He had a Super Bowl ring, and he met Putin, and Putin asked to see the ring, and he put his ring on. He was like, "Oh, this is really cool," and he made some kind of joke about it, and then the KGB just like got around him and surrounded him, and he just walked away, and he stole his ring.
Wow.
And then the article goes on to say that he wanted to take it back. He was telling government officials and the president and everything, I want my ring back. I mean, that has a lot of meaning to me. I mean, you could imagine.
Right.
And I think it says that the ring was worth $25,000. So he's going, I want my ring back. And the government and the president and I can't remember, that would have been Obama, right? President at the time, and then said to him, and I think Secret Service agencies or somebody said to him, you just need to kind of act like this was a gift and just let it go.
Wow.
Like, you don't want to ruffle his feathers. I don't know, man. That's crazy that
Can you imagine
happened.
sitting across somebody like that and they just walk away with
They just
your
walk
ring?
away with something that means something to you that only however many people have, and he's just going to take it. I mean, but there you go, right?
Right.
A taker. You hate to draw that type of a conclusion from just that little anecdote, but sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire, man. I mean, that's what that guy's about. He wants to take more resources, people, whatever, to do whatever it is he thinks he's supposed to do. That's the spirit of scarcity. That's the spirit of living a lie and building your own kingdom. Opposed to that, which was some good news, which I think we always have to focus on, is the billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, the Rocketeer. He decided to give Ukraine Wi-Fi from outer space.
Right.
He's been building since 2018 the Starlink, which is a bunch of satellites that provide from the atmosphere, from orbit, internet for wherever it points. And somebody tweeted at him about, hey, it'd be nice if Elon would turn on Starlink for these people. And then he tweeted back and said, I got it. So then like within a day, he was offering Wi-Fi or internet to the people, just gave it to him. And there's pictures of these giant trucks because I guess there has to be some kind of units on the ground that bounce this stuff around. But apparently it's pretty easy. And then he texted again or tweeted that more's coming.
Wow.
So, I mean, look, I mean, just right there, two different ideas about what am I here to give? Am I here to make this world a better place? Or am I here to take?
Yeah, I love the visualization that you've done with scarcity and generosity, of thinking of them as physical locations.
Yeah. Well, I think that the state of mind, right? What are you in? We have to all do real work. One of the things we're talking about with our kids is as we're teaching them the Bible, our kids at the church that come through we have this class called We Live, where they learn the story of the Bible and what the Bible is. And we say that there's 4 tools that it is. It's a magnifying glass. It's a mirror. What are the other ones? Oh gosh, I'm going to forget them. I helped write them, but I can't remember. Kind of helped write them. But it's a mirror. Like we have to look in the mirror and go, what is driving me? I mean, are you serious about worshiping God? Like, does it matter to you at all? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
And the reality is that you'll find it's for the wrong reason. And that's the beginning of healing. Okay, God, I know I'm doing this for the wrong reason. And at some point you hope to mature and you make it the right reason.
Right.
But if you don't take the time to see what it is, it's going to be the wrong reason.
You ended with the inspection.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, that hit home for me.
Yeah.
You talked about doing a home inspection of the heart and how important it is when we do home inspections to find the imperfections.
That's right.
And we're looking for those things that are actually going to be improved. And we want to know.
We want to know
where they are. That really resonated with me as I was standing there at the end of the service and going, where am I really on this spectrum? Because it is a spectrum.
It is. It is.
And how and where are those places in my heart that I need to deal with this?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a spectrum is kind of an interesting thing to think about. Like when you look at at your weather app, and there's like the spectrum of like sun and then clouds and then cold and then rain and then mixed rain and then snow. It's like there's a difference.
I feel an Ohio reference coming in here about our weather.
Well, the weather stinks right now, but there's a big difference. It's a spectrum. So you might take that analogy to think that you're making everything too smooth and it's too, there's not much difference between being in generosity or living in scarcity. But there's a big difference between sunny and 72 and freezing rain. Big difference. The color, the temperature, the way that the whole experience is, the moisture, it's different. And we do need to ask ourselves. And I love that analogy too. I love the idea of going, I do want to find what's wrong. I want to find it. That alone, I think, is at least a humble place to start.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what's not right more than what's right now. Humility. I'm interested in what I don't know. What I don't know is more important to me than what I do know. I'm going to keep seeking so that I can grow. But that comes from a worldview that not a lot of people like, because the worldview is you are made in the image of God, but you're fractured. There's a problem. We've all like sheep have gone astray. The depths of the evil of the human heart, I mean, it's bad news when you talk about what we have the capability to do. But that's not something people want to hear, right?
Right.
You don't want to hear you're messed up, and you want to hear you're the perfect house and that everything's fine and it's brand new and there's no problems.
Right.
That's not real, though. So even if you don't like it theologically, practically speaking, what a stupid way to live your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think we have to explore what the depths of that spectrum are as well.
Yeah.
It would be like comparing the Ohio weather and saying it's fantastic here compared to Seattle.
Right.
Well, what does an uncloudy day look like?
Right.
And how many of those do you get?
Right. Yes.
How good could it get in generosity if we actually live there on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's good, man. Yes, live there. How do you, so that's what I'm talking about this week. So I'm going to get back. How do you make sure that you have not let scarcity's God be your God? How do you make sure that you are moving to a different state of mind, to a different reality? And so that's really good. We're going to talk about that more. So with that, David, all this good stuff, let's move into the reason that you're here, in a part of the podcast that I like to call the aficionado, because this means that you speak with authority on some certain things in your life. Thank the Lord for your experience and your ability to lead and leverage that. And like you said, offer it. And so that's what you're going to do as we dive into this part about leadership with David Holladay, called The Aficionado. Okay, so you told us where you're from. David Holladay moved to Columbus, Ohio, I don't know, within the past 2 years.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And he is, I'm going to tell you guys just a little bit of background, then you're going to fill in the blanks for us. David is the former president and CEO of Cover My Meds. So Cover My Meds, he'll tell you what that does because it's kind of confusing, and I won't say it right until I say it 3 times and hear it the right way. But he'll tell you what that is. But if you've been on 70 West, just west of downtown, and you go to, you'll see where the big Rogue sign is, the Rogue building, or at least the
Orange Barrel Marketing.
That marketing building that has the big Rogue sign on it, or Apple, or whatever they change. Right next to that, there's these 2
big glass cubes,
kind of Siamese looking buildings, and David was part of that project, if not the lead part of making that project and bringing Cover My Meds to Columbus. And then he's had a change. So David, why don't you kind of launch into a little bit? People want to know, who's David Holladay, where are you coming from, a little bit about what you've done, what you're doing now, and then we'll talk about what we've learned, what you've learned.
Sure. Thanks, Joel. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I got to tell you, first and foremost, I am the husband of a beautiful wife and a wonderful partner who has stood by my side for almost 28 years now.
Wow.
And given me Deanna, and given me 2 wonderful kids, a 21-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter. And that leads to why I moved here. For 2.5 years, I had the opportunity to run Cover My Meds from Nashville, and was traveling up here 50 weeks out of the year, and just missing the opportunity of being with my daughter, and said, enough's enough. Yeah. We gotta move the family.
Yeah.
And
good
so
for you.
Made the move up here about a year and a half ago.
Not leaving scarcity in any way, but understanding the principle that if you want things to be different, you got to make a move.
That's right. And our time is probably the only thing that truly is marked by a delineation of we only get 24 hours a day, right? And how you spend it and where you spend it is the most valuable resource that we have to spend: time, talent, and treasure. Yep. And time being the top of that. So I definitely was looking for a way to spend more time with the family and invest there. I have had over 25 years experience in the healthcare space, and predominantly in the pharmaceutical space. This is where Cover My Meds comes into that story. Worked with 2 major PBMs and carriers, insurance carriers, prior to coming up here. And
PBM?
Prescription Benefit Management Company. Another one of those. Ask. Yeah, you bet. It confuses those of us who've even been around it for a while.
That's good to know.
So made the move up here. It's been 4 years with Cover My Meds, and Cover My Meds is a company that was founded right here in Columbus, sought to solve a unique problem in healthcare, and that's the fact that we get this insurance, and our first experience is showing up at the pharmacy and having a prescription from the prescriber, and they tell you it's not covered when you get to the pharmacy, and they tell you have to choose. Do you trust the insurance provider who's telling you it's not covered, or do you trust the doctor who wrote you the script? And we all know who we trust, right? It's the physician.
The doctor.
And so why is that our first experience in healthcare is being put in that position as a consumer? And we went to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to remove the barriers, put all of the P's in the system, the pharmacist, the physician, the provider, the pharma manufacturer, put all of them around the patient in a way that they could focus on solving this problem for the patient, with the patient at the center. That's what started this company that was a unicorn and grew to be worth 1.8 billion, sold to McKesson.
Now you got brought in, you said a total of 4 years ago?
Yes, so I came in post-acquisition from McKesson. I've been friends with the founder of the company since he founded the company, Matt Scantlin, back in 2010, 2011.
So just give everybody a little bit of what got you into that space in the first place. What were you doing? What was your background before you went to Cover My Meds?
Yeah, I'm a technologist by training. I grew up in the management information system world, which is, I was a coder.
Okay.
Worked in credit card space and did coding on just how our credit card transactions work. Did some work in telecom space, and then, like I said, in the prescription benefit management space prior to coming up here.
Okay.
Had the opportunity to join post-acquisition, and we know that post-acquisition is usually where companies fail. They get acquired and they get consumed into a large corporation, and things change. And this was an opportunity to defy the odds, and we did. For 4 years, we grew 25+% year over year.
Wow. So what my first reaction to acquisition being the beginning of the end is that the entity that's acquired loses its heart and soul.
Yeah.
Not in a dramatic way, like it becomes a meaningless endeavor, but that those moorings and principles that really founded it, and the heart, maybe even the person that drove it, its identity gets shook up.
Yeah, it's a marriage.
Yeah,
I mean, and let's face it, it's just like any other union.
Really hard to do.
Yeah, two relationships come together, and you have to figure out, who are we together? That's
interesting. That's a great analogy. I mean, I know you are going to like potentially enter that space, right? In terms of your future, like other acquisitions, but that's really interesting. I have people come to me as a pastor, right, and they want me to marry them, and they want me to, do their marriage counseling. And I mean, I've had some moments where there's a not a fit. I actually have a story where I was a couple weeks into counseling, and the two were the biblical model, right, is the unequally yoked. Mm-hmm. You're not equally yoked, which is the idea that if you have two ox pulling whatever a till or whatever they pull, I don't know, they pull something. And if one is bigger or faster than the other, then you can't go in a straight line. So if one's bigger, one ox is big, one's small, then they're going to go in circles. If they disagree with each other and they both try to go opposite directions, they go nowhere, right? If one's going backwards and one going forward, then you're going to pull apart, right? They're going to move and leave on without you.
Right.
You got all kinds of potential, so you have to be equally yoked, similar size, similar pace, similar direction in life. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. It's a great principle, but that's what you're saying, and you could see it at times. So one time, I know it's a little sideways, but one time I had a couple. And this couple, I think the issue was, this is a little hot topic, was guns. She had some problem with guns, which is understandable. Just had a problem with them. I think she even had some trauma related to him. And he just was a guy that grew up with guns. I mean, he just had all kinds of guns. And in one of the conversations, their ideologies came out. What is life? What is it all about? What do we do under the worst circumstances. How do we survive? What's the purpose of life? And you're talking, I mean, they sat with each other and I just watched them define how opposed they were to some major pieces of life. And so I went for broke with them. And that's one of the things I do with couples when they come in. I said, look, I'll help you, but I am going to challenge you. Like, I am going to tell you if there's something that I don't think is right, you're going to hear it from me. So you're agreeing beforehand to hear that.
Okay. Rather know it up front than later.
That's right. So then they say, I told them, I said, this is a big deal. I said, you guys do not agree about this. I said, and if you couldn't agree about this, I have a hard time understanding how you would do well. Mm-hmm. You really because the implications of the ideologies, they slipped into money and kids, and it just kind of like opened up a Pandora's box of all these mismatches. And I said, unless you can square this away, or you have some conversation that maybe you can see it from a different way and there's some hope, but it was not. So then 2 weeks before the wedding, he just disappeared. Literally. I mean, he got a text, she got a text, but that was it.
Wow.
And she was so mad at me for a month.
Sure.
And then a year later,
the thank you came.
Oh yeah. She came back and she's like, thank you so. But anyway, I mean, it's true, right? So that's what acquisitions are. But you got to go in and you saw the possibility.
Yeah. And getting to join post-acquisition is an interesting spot to join. In fact, it's not usually a place that people choose.
Yeah, right.
Because there's a lot of change going on, unless you're the advocate for change agent.
Right, unless you're the driver.
Right, and the opportunity here really wasn't driven by that. It was, I have known the company since they started and saw a culture that was amazing. And we talked earlier about, a place where you could do things bigger than yourselves, and having a set of core values and beliefs that were more than something that hung on the wall, but actually real. And you see them lived out on a daily basis in the people's approach to how they approached life.
Yeah.
I got pretty enamored by that and said, is there a way that we could continue? And we were able to. Post-acquisition, we grew. We launched 2 new products that were over $100 million a piece, which... Wow. That in and of itself is a unicorn.
Right, yeah, that's not normal.
And it's been just an incredible journey. And, just recently in January, it was my time to step away and take the next opportunity and consider where next is going to be, and watch some people continue to, blossom in their journey as well.
Yeah, good for you. I remember when I met you at Cover My Meds at the new building.
Yeah.
You talk about a culture. I mean, that's a corporate experience that's very unique. Right?
It is.
They serve everybody lunch.
Yes, full culinary staff.
And do you pay for it, or is it?
It's part of your
of your compensation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that I thought was cool, which I'm not supposed to say as a pastor, is you had draft beer.
Yeah, it's on tap.
On tap, man. I mean, is that one of those things where it's like you're allowed to do that, but if people do that, then they get frowned upon? Or did some people have some beer?
No, they had beer. That's part of the day. And what it really said, it wasn't about the beer consumption.
Yeah.
It said to this 30-something crowd that we brought together, we trust you enough to be an adult.
Yeah, right.
Make good decisions.
Right.
And we want to empower you to lead and make good decisions and be a part of this organization.
Absolutely.
And, the people that misuse or abuse that, they're gone.
They're not going to be around anyway.
That's right.
There's other stuff going on. But if you are, at 4 p.m., meetings over, you guys had a basketball court.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you, man, I would have been one of the guys going, let's get a beer and play pig.
Yeah, my daughter
I hope that happened.
My daughter came down and saw the place. She's 17 and said, Dad, this place is a parent trap. And I said, what do you mean by that? She says, well, why would anybody want to come home after being here all day?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Great place, great culture. That was a big part of your job, right?
Yes.
Big part of your job, which I really appreciated. I could tell how intentional, because I would imagine, and we'll dive into some of these specific things that we're ready to talk about, but I would imagine that in a corporate space, making it feel a certain way different than just the natural progression of corporate, which becomes hierarchical and sterile and chain of command and punch your hours, because you become a number really fast. I mean, how many people in the building, not COVID, but typically
1,400 employees here in town. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just can become real fast. So anyway, tell me a little bit about creating the culture like that. And if you want to just dive into any of the other stuff that I talked to you about, my opening kind of just question for you is, what is leadership? But I do want to hear a little bit about culture and how you shape that on that scale, because that's intriguing to me.
Yeah, authenticity is what I would say. You can't make a perception of a place that has that kind of culture. You have to be real about what you're telling these people that they're available to do and be a part of. We had an incredible amount of applicants that would apply for the jobs that were available, and it was because they heard about a place where they could come and do things bigger than themselves. They heard that there was a group of people that were okay with working with others and allowing their ideas to be improved by others.
Yeah.
And it just bred this mentality that people knew about before they ever walked in the front door. And you have to be intentional about
clarity.
This
is our mission. This is what we do. This is what it is here.
And equally as important as where we're going is how we're going to get there.
Yeah. Say that again.
Yeah, it's
where we're going.
That's right. It's not just that the end justifies the means, but how we get there is equally as important.
So the journey.
That's right.
So I know you are the big dog over there, but you've had. So did you ever have to fire somebody for just a culture fit thing? Our goal would be not to fire somebody for culture fit, but to recognize that on the way in the door. And make it so apparent as you're joining the organization that here's who we are. We're not. This isn't a joke. This is who we are. If you don't like this, don't jump on board. Like, don't. We do the thing at the church. We love humor here. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna do stuff that at times is like. So if you have a problem with that, you're gonna not like that part. That's part of our culture here, is to have fun, and some people are like, oh yeah, I want to have fun. And then, you've had people, we haven't had many because we tell them up front.
That's right.
So then they leave. You're like, oh, people should interview their potential employer as much as they're being interviewed.
That's
absolutely. Right. But have you ever had to let someone go for a misfit of culture?
Yeah.
What did that, tell me, I want to hear what they do. What? How did it manifest? The culture misfit.
Yeah, Joel, I would just say it's and I'm having a hard time right now remembering a specific.
No, that's fine. No, yeah. Conceptual is fine.
Yeah, it really is about approaching decision making the way that we choose to approach decision making as a group, and that's. That we're not looking for a maverick, and that you being a person of knowledge and expertise, if you show up as a jerk on the job, it's not going to be tolerated.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you know, but rather how we go about doing our work together and allowing the ideas to be cultivated together is what's more important.
It's an interesting thing I found. I've heard leaders say you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Just because you got there first doesn't mean you're smartest. In church world, that's what it's like. You started something, and then the only way you're going to grow is to have the smartest people in the room, or smarter people in the room. But at the same time, it's your job to make sure that the smarter people in the room don't make it about being the smartest person in the room.
Right.
Yeah, you're smart, but that's a piece of this. Mm-hmm. How you interact, how you share your idea, is that a little bit of what you're getting at?
You got it.
It's like someone shows up and I know, they're the smart person. I'm smart. I went to Yale. I know the answer. We don't need to have a discussion about it. And they miss that, right?
Yeah. If you don't think about cultivating the others around you through the process, it's not always having the answer to the question, but sometimes, most of the time I would interject, having the right question is more important than having the answer.
Right. And just being on a collective journey of helping move the mission forward. But again, that can sound like corporate speak, but it can't be.
Right.
It has to be real.
It's authenticity.
It has to be real. You know, you have to be the kind of, you know, for me as a leader, I'm like, I really want to know what you think. Tell me what you think. Because I read years ago, with many counselors, plans succeed. With few, they fail. You know, so why wouldn't you want to hear? I mean, I don't want you. Do you plan to fail?
Absolutely not.
No, but if you don't get counsel, that's what you're doing.
That's right.
You will fail if you don't let everybody speak and create an environment where sharing that idea that's important. Yeah, that's good. And that can be hard because, you know, sometimes you have the showstopper and you have to go, let's keep talking. That might be right, but let's keep talking. Or sometimes you have the dumbest idea ever said, but you have to make it safe.
Right.
It's okay. That's part of it. Let's make this soup here and keep going. Okay, so David, what is leadership?
Great question. You know, our first definition of leadership when we get into business world is the title we receive. Many people stop there and they go, oh, well, I'm a leader if I've been placed in charge of some other people. I'm a manager, I'm a director, I'm a VP.
Title.
Right.
Position.
Quickly you recognize that gives you some authority, but that doesn't make you a leader. And leadership comes, and I'll define it really simply, when you look behind you and someone's following.
Yeah.
You've actually cast enough vision, you're putting enough light on the path that someone else is saying, you know what, that's a direction I want to go, and that's someone I could see myself behind.
Yeah.
But then...
and that's a tough thing because you hire somebody and their resume says they get this position, but it is tough, isn't it? Sometimes you don't know. They'll tell you. When I interview people for a job, like I remember interviewing for a groups person, and it's like, how many people have you led?
Right.
How many people have you led? And I had one person come from out of state, a friend of someone that worked here. They wanted to have the person be the groups guy because he was a really sweet, like nice guy who like knew the Bible and loved people. And I was like, how many people have you led? What do you mean, how many people have you led? When have you been the leader of a specific amount of individuals to take them all from A to B to C? Could be like a mission trip. Could be like have you ever led anything? And this one is like, well, I led like 4 people. We did this thing. And I'm like, no, not because that didn't mean there wasn't a potential, but you could just tell that like they wanted to be a leader lots of times and nobody was following them.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the definition of leadership I gave, there's managerial leadership where you have reports and you have that number of people that you have to take care of. But there's leadership, and we define this. One of the first things we said when I joined the company is we wanted to be a company of 1,000 leaders. Yeah. Well, how do you do that when you're a company that's 800 people strong? And you want to be a company of 1,000 leaders. In fact, the first thing people said was, well, does that mean we're going to be a 10,000 person company? I don't know. At some point we may be, but we need 1,000 people here that each will show up every day and be a leader. It means you look around and someone's following. So that can come from any position within the company, whether you're a subject matter expert in your given role, or you've got a capability that you're bringing to the table, and you may not have a direct report managerially, right? But you can still be a leader.
Yeah, that's good. How would that manifest? Do you parse the managerial leader and the leader? Like in your mind, can someone be a good leader, or can someone be a good manager and not be necessarily good at leading? Is that what you were getting at?
No, I think you have to be a good leader to be a good manager.
Okay.
But I think you can be a good leader without being a manager.
Without being a manager. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
And think about technical tracks and individual contributors on teams that are really talented at what they do. Their leadership is equally as important in being the mentor to somebody else who's trying to grow in that same level of career and skill set.
And they may not be the manager; they're just contributing, but they're influencing, they're leading.
Yeah, think about an influential leader. If you're actually showing up for your job, and you name it, you're a finance person, or you're a programmer or a developer, and you have a group of followers that you're helping to develop in that skill set or that trade, is that harder or easier than being the authority manager?
Yeah, right.
I'll take those influencers any day because I can turn them into people managers.
Yeah.
But influential leadership comes because someone freely and willfully gave their allegiance to that person and said, and you've got something I want.
I want to follow that. That's an interesting thing. Have you ever had brought somebody to a place where realizing they were a leader and they didn't even know it? They just kind of naturally had a bunch of people following them, and then you're like, dude.
Yeah, we would call those influencer nodes in the system. You look around a company. And I learned this back in the days when I was doing mergers and acquisitions. You don't just go in and look at the org chart. You actually look at who are the people that others are going to and saying, tell me more about how to get the job done, or that they're actually having the influence in the room whenever there's a decision that needs to be made.
Absolutely. One of my favorite, I love the definition of leadership that you gave. One of the best definitions I heard was Marcus Buckingham. He's one of the guys that did the Strengths Finder, and it's similar to yours. So you guys probably use that.
I'm a huge Strengths Finder fan.
Oh, we need to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Marcus Buckingham, and then another guy. There's another guy, but he's the one that always speaks at the conferences, the leadership conferences I heard. And his definition of leadership was, and I think it still is, the ability to rally people together to a better future. And I like that because when I've done some leadership talks, and I do think that, like you said, the node, like the natural kind of they find, but I think that leadership is like an action, a thing that you decide to do, that you intentionally move into the world and go, we're going here. Let's go. I think we should go. And like you said, there it is. If they can do that, the ability to have people follow you, rally people together, lead. Where are we leading? It better be a better place, right? I mean, that is the moral side of it. But technically speaking, man, if you can't rally people together, do you think that everyone has the ability to become a leader like that? Like the ability to rally them? And what's your thoughts on that kind of nature, nurture?
Yeah, if I believe that we're all made in his image, then I have to believe that that's got to be at the core of capability.
Some version.
Now, I think there are varying degrees of gifts and talents that we're given, and knowing what your strengths and capabilities are and accentuating those—that's the whole Strengths Finder thing. Is where we find our best self in this world, and our best ability to have the impact that our feet were planted here for. Yeah.
You may be able to lead. I think it was Maxwell. Someone talks about the levels of leadership.
Right, 5 levels of leadership.
Yeah, that, and also the number. Like you may be a leader of 5, some are a leader of 50, some are a leader of 500, some 5,000. I think that's true. So definitely, some of the proponents and the elements of a leader may be universal across that scale.
Well, the fundamentals of it is you have to be able to lead yourself.
You have to be able to lead yourself first, right?
Start,
I mean, that's of course. Yep.
And you know,
how do you do that? Well, first of all, on the Strengths Finder, what are you?
Relator, woo, command, analytics, and arranger.
Wow. Okay, so the first one you said, I don't know if I've ever met anyone who their top thing is relator. What does that mean?
It basically means that there are a few really deep relationships in my life, and they matter to me long term. And I will go extremely deep with them. And there's a band of brothers, I would call it, 8. And some of those are physically my brothers. I have 3 older brothers. Yeah. And we talk on a regular basis.
That was the Petri dish.
Yeah, daily. And we go very deep. Those relationships are extremely important to me.
Do you are you constantly on the move looking for more, or do you kind of have them and then it's just you just build those, you just dig those deeper, you water those?
Yeah. The woo side is the side that's
interesting.
looking. It's a very
Always
interesting contrast to both of those.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and it's really recognizing the connectiveness and seeing the value in what each person brings to the table. And my wife, she's a little more of an introvert than me.
Mine too.
We go to parties, and she said, "You just see it as it's the world is my oyster,
Yes.
and I want to dive in and experience humanity." And it's true. But when it comes down
so
to
on that other assessment, you're an extrovert.
Yeah. And when it comes down to deep relationship and getting to know me, that starts getting reserved for a few.
So, relator. I remember hearing in the Strengths Finders, because there's like 36 of them or something like that. The relator sounds like good for not like management, like the ability to
developing leaders,
develop people.
Yeah.
The maybe the intentionality behind that, because there's something I think that's key is, does the relator mean that like you have the ability to relate to people well, or that you desire relationship?
It's more the latter than the former.
Okay.
Really, that it's important to me that I exercise and see the value of human interaction, deep human interaction, not just surface level.
I find that has to be one of the strengths that is almost, I think in some of those strengths, there's like cardinals that it's like, if you can't do this or you don't figure this out, even if like, you're not, it's not a top for you, but like if you have no equity in being able to relate to people and build relationships, it's going to be hard to lead.
It's kind of the human transaction that we're all built upon, right?
Yeah. Like, so mine's not one of those that scares me, but I hear you talk about that and I'm like, no, I have to be able to do that a little bit, because how can you, my son I talked about it, my son's on a basketball team. And so the coach is a great guy. I'm the assistant coach. The coach is a great guy. It's me. He sends an email out to parents and says, hey, if you want to talk to me about your son and kind of what he's going through and what he's saying at home. So my wife called the coach and just told him things that only a mom knows. This is how Kellen is and how he connects with people and what is most important to him. My son, the most important thing to him, it just is the way is the relationship. Friends. Like, that is why he likes to play basketball, because he gets to hang out with all of his friends.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
No, when she told him that, he said, oh my gosh. So she told him, really all you got to do, because he said one time I was telling him to move out, out of the paint for a zone, and he just looked at me and didn't do it, and then he didn't do it, and he got pulled out of the game, and I watched it happen too. I'm like, Kellen, it doesn't matter if you're playing well. If you don't do what the coach says, you're out. You have to do what he says. And so then this conversation happened, and she said that he listens really well when he feels that you have related to him a little bit. So the coach went like this and showed up at the next couple of practices and stopped and said, Kellen, how was school today? What'd you do at school? Where'd you get are you got new shoes on? And whatever, just tried to relate to him and build a relationship.
Right.
So there was like, a relationship builds. We talked about this. We're going to talk about this more next time in the, relationship. Oh, there's a connectivity between that. Wasn't just some standalone thing that you do when you talk to people and act like you care. You remember, you're building it. It matters. He did that with him, and then his whole demeanor changed. Yeah.
In the business world or in, businesses, we always talk about employee engagement. This is the big buzzword.
Okay, I love that
today. And there's different tests or questions that we ask so we can assess that and then look at it over a continuum of time. All of that boils down to relationship, and it really there's three categories: know me, focus me, and care about me. And this is kind of the basics of what we all want as humans. We want
context. This is what you're teaching your leaders to have their disposition to the client. You need to know them. You need to focus them in the right direction. And then you need to
care about them.
Care.
Yeah, and not necessarily the client. Before we can get there and think about the aspect
it's each
of this,
other.
Got to think about the folks within the company first.
Each other.
That's right.
Know each other, help each other focus, and care for one another.
That's right.
How in the world do you do that with 1,000 people?
Yeah, it starts out first with it's one-on-one relationships.
Man.
And
it's a lot.
You can't bypass that. You hear another one of those terms in the industry of it's one-on-ones. Have you had your one-on-one with your employee lately? And it really is, are you spending the direct time to understand who the person is?
Yeah.
What's motivating them?
Yeah.
Do you truly know them? Do you know their wants, their desires? Do you know their strengths, their capabilities? And then are you providing the right amount of focus? Meaning, do you have a vision where you're going? And does everybody understand the why? And can I, as an individual, understand how the work that I'm doing connects with that greater good, that greater vision of where we want to go from here, that only can be accomplished by this larger group and each of us individually giving to it?
Have you ever had a situation where somebody fits the culture, they care about the right things, they're relatable, they talk with people, they get all that stuff, but they're just not performing. They're just not, and I know that performing means that's part of it, but like whatever their objective is, because that's where these things get tough, right? I mean, you have your objective and you still got to do your job. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had, a person that's just like, man, this person feels like they fit in every way, but they're just not.
Yeah, it usually breaks down to trying to figure out where is the gap, and I'll cut to the end on this. Yeah. Rarely is it because they're incapable. A lot of times it's beyond the incapability. Most of us show up to the job and have the right skill sets or can be trained in the right skill sets. The
possibility, the potential.
Yeah, it's alignment with the vision. And do I know where we're headed and why? And can I take my own purpose and reason for existence and align it with that?
And so you come into that worker and help them and go, hey, what seems to be the problem? Like where?
How first are you thinking about? And it's almost counseling, if you will. Yeah. At the basic levels of why are your 2 feet planted here on this earth?
Yeah.
And what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And then if you know that about yourself, it's much easier to align with a body of people, whether that's a community or it's a work environment or it's a project that you're just picking up or a church, right?
Yeah.
You have to know why you're here, what your purpose is, and then understand the purpose of the organization, because the company's not some magic thing. It's a group of people.
Yes.
That are aligning all of their purpose and passion and saying, here's where we're going together.
Okay, so you just tipped your hand a little bit. You talked about what leadership is. You've explained to me in the past one of your passions about leadership, maybe something unique to you about what you had it revealed to you that you could do this version of leadership. Tell us what I'm referring to here. I can't remember exactly how you articulated it. It may sound simple or a little straightforward, but I feel like that my purpose in life, the reason why I'm planted here, is to help others understand their purpose. Okay, yeah, well, that was it. Yep.
And all too often we approach life with this mentality, or our jobs with this mentality of, I want to feel good about what I'm doing. And if I put enough of those days together where I felt good about my job, I woke up and was excited about going to work today, then if I get enough of those going, then okay, that means I've got some passion. Mm-hmm. And if I get enough passion about what I'm doing, then I'll finally find my purpose in life. Okay. It's exactly opposite of that.
Yeah, tell me. Yep.
You first have to go through the deep understanding of why am I here and what am I here to accomplish? What are my strengths and capabilities?
How do you help someone through that?
Yeah, I think just starting first with what are my gifts, talents, capabilities, and do I really understand them?
So you help people do self-assessment.
That's right. And then from there,
So sorry, how do you do that with them? Do you do the strengths finders and what are some of the things that you do?
there's multiple tools out there that we can use. I like Strengths Finder. Personalysis is one I've learned here lately and really enjoyed using it as well. It's really about articulating and being able to articulate to others through words what it is about you that makes you uniquely capable to be a part of a team. And a common language, it doesn't matter which one you use, whether that's Strengths Finder or Personalysis or Myers-Briggs.
Yep.
It's that common language that allows us to talk about and express who we are and then have an understanding of who someone else is sitting across the table. Rather than putting a different facade on them, but looking at it through the same building blocks.
So some of those strength things and personality assessments are just unifiers.
That's right.
Tools and to show us who we are, so we are talking in common language so that we can make adjustments, we can understand, clarify, and move forward together. That's a great way to think about those
quicker
things.
Understanding to put yourself in the shoes of the other person.
Yeah, empathy.
And understand the perspective that they're coming to the table with.
I like that. That's got to be invigorating. When you do that with people, you're a strong Christian. Talk a little bit about your faith. And tell me how you integrate your faith into that type of purpose, meaningful life in the corporate world.
Yeah, when I have those conversations about purpose with people, that's a pretty deep question.
That's what I mean.
And it causes some introspective work to be done. And, it's typically something that we don't deal with just until we're late 40s, early 50s, and we're starting to recognize that life is not... It's not infinite, but there's actually an ending to this.
Yeah.
And, we start recognizing that there's only so many years left.
Yeah.
And how am I going to use this time? And so the conversation I have with leaders that I'm around, whether it's those who work directly for me or in other places in the community, is why we wait? Why are we waiting that long? Why not have this conversation with yourself in your 20s and 30s? And why not start the dialogue with understanding who you are and why your feet are planted on this earth now?
Yeah.
And it's priority setting too. Know who you are as an individual, get appreciation for that, and learn how to love yourself so that you can love others. And then think about your family.
Tell me a little bit about loving yourself. Where did that click for you? In the Christian world, there's like this really interesting, or maybe I would call it weird, off idea. You can't love yourself. That's selfish. It's not about loving self. It's about loving others. Tell me where you come from on that, because I don't think that's a biblical idea to not love yourself.
Yeah. How can you show grace to someone else and empathy or understanding if you haven't taken the time to say, I'm a screwed up mess and it's okay that's where I was yesterday, but today's a new day and there can be something different.
Yeah. You get grace, you receive it. One of the reasons we get grace, we don't deserve grace.
Right.
That's the point of it. But it is offered to us. You think about that. Why do you give grace to your son? Because you love them. You're forgiving them because you love them. Yes, they did something wrong. Yes, they need help, but you don't have to give it. God gives it because in his mind, we're worth him giving it to.
That's right.
Or him giving it to us. Yeah, he wants to give us something that fills in the gap because he thinks that we're worth that. That's a message I think is important. How do you do this in corporate, the Christian side? Do you go there? How does that happen? You start talking about purpose. Do you help people discover an individual purpose for their specific life, or do you help them understand that generally, from your perspective, everybody has a purpose?
Everybody has a purpose, and we're all searching for what that purpose is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a quest that it's a hunger, it is a hole in our heart that we all have.
Yes.
that has to be filled.
Yes.
Now, you're going to figure out how you fill that as an individual. And I don't think we have to be overt and preachy about how to solve that problem. But I think there is also an opportunity through talking about this in common terms that people come to their own discovery, and they come through their own evolution of understanding what that is. I guarantee you, if you search long enough, you're going to find the answer to what fills that hole.
You know, you have described to me that your disposition in the corporate world is to really help people define their individual purpose.
Yes.
How did you get to that? How did you were you always that way?
I think it's an evolution over time. The more overt I get about it, because the more important I see it as the number one driver to what allows us to be creative, what allows us to do things bigger than ourselves together, is by knowing yourself first before you show up and stand there next to somebody else. And it's the only way you can measure, is the purpose of this organization something that I want to apply myself to and be a part of?
Yeah.
If I don't know who I am and I don't know what I stand for, then how do I
connect to all this?
Yeah.
Defining self, very important. So you've had some people lead you in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about some leadership that has impacted you and why and who? And
yeah, I think you asked me the other day, who is the person? And I don't think there's one person that I could point to. There's a lot of different situations. And, if I think about leaders that have had huge impact on me, it won't come without surprise. My father is probably one of those greatest impacts. My dad's gone now, but he raised 4 boys, and he raised very independent thinkers. And if you're from the outside, you might see some of those conversations and think, wow, that's a little heated.
Okay. Passionate.
Yes. And challenge you to take a position, stand up and think about your position and why. And I think that's probably one of the greatest things he left me with, is that you knowing yourself and understanding why you stand for something is just as important as the outcome that you're trying to achieve.
That sounds to me like what you do.
Yeah.
Or what you did at Cover My Meds. Who we are, why we're here, that is just as important as what we're about to go do.
Yes.
And it's going to inform the process. It's going to give direction for every step to take.
Yeah. Now I'll say one thing I learned since then, and none of us are perfect. I'm part of that too, and becoming better every day.
Yeah.
My dad was really good at telling you what the answer was too, and how to get there. And there's times where it got pretty heated because his way was the only way to get there.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And I think that one of the things I've learned over the years is that there are many ways to get to the final solution.
Yes.
And the more opportunity that we can offer as leaders of saying why something needs to be done, but leaving the what and the how up to those that you're inviting into the party to be a part of it, the more leadership you create.
Yeah, you got to give people the authority, you got to give people the direction. But if you tell them how to do everything, they're not going to do it the way you would do it.
Nope, never. And they're not going to learn their own way of getting there.
Yeah, the basic little thing I learned with my team is like you do have to clear a goal. You have to have a clear, disposition. This is how we behave. We treat one another. We act. But I'm not going to tell you how to do this job. Here's the job.
Yeah.
You go do it however you want. It's like delegation. To me, I always talk about one of the biggest things of real leadership is delegation. The ability to kind of offload and hand projects, do what only you can do. If you can do it and you're the only one that can do it, you're probably doing the right thing. If someone else on your team, in your life can do that, then you're wasting your time in terms of organizational mission. I can do this. And a lot of leaders will struggle with that, it's faster. It's more work for me to hand it off than it is, to just do it myself.
Yeah.
But delegation is, to me, about here's what you're going to do. and I don't really care how you do it. All these people need contacted.
Yeah, it's
do it however makes most sense. You tell me how to do it. I don't know.
The way I describe that is clarity versus certainty.
Yeah.
You have to have clarity of vision. We have to clearly know
where we're going
in 1 year, 3 years, where that looks like, and you have to be able to describe it.
Yeah.
What will it look like?
Yeah.
What will it feel like when we get there? What will success look like and feel like? But we don't have to tell everyone
exactly how we're going to get there.
That's it.
On a large level, I loved the analogy of the goal doesn't change, but the approach may change.
That's right.
So if you're playing golf, you know the goal, you know where the pin is, you know what the idea is, but as you go, the approach might change. And sometimes you might hit like a hooded shot, keep it low under the wind. Sometimes you got to play it up against the wind. Sometimes you're going to bump and run and bump it up along the ground. But look, that's just approach. We're going after the same thing, and that's what makes people great at golf.
Yeah,
is they change their approach every single time they hit a shot. They do what is necessary because it's like, I'm going to drive it and we're going to drive it. Well, when you hit it into the rough, you can't do that anymore.
That's right.
You got to change your approach.
If all you planned for was to be in the fairway, then you're never going to get there.
You're never going to get there. Yeah. I love that thought. I think it's important on a corporate level because you have to, some people, I want to know every single detail of how we're going to get there. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, to a level, here's a strategy. Here's this strategy. My plan is to hit a driver, hit it in the fairway, then hit a 9-iron and hit it right next to the pin and putt it in. That's what I'm planning on doing. Okay. Well, I hit it into the rough. So I'm changing. I'm still trying to get it in the hole. But to people doing projects, go do it. Do it however you want. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm going to tell you what I want to have done. And, it's as silly as this. I know how you take notes. I use my phone for everything. Mm-hmm. I have all my notes. I have thousands of notes. I mean, I put my phone by the shower so I can write a note while I'm in the shower because I don't want to forget it. That's the way my mind is. Mm-hmm. If I'm working out, it just comes to me. My wife takes all of her notes on a spiral, notepad, right. And she has a computer. She has a phone, she has a spiral notepad, and a paper calendar.
Wow.
That's how, and I'm like, but her business is growing and she's making it happen and she's got tons of clients and she's doing all that. And I'm like, how do you, but hey, man, if you're, but I will say though that when you get into that, sometimes with younger leaders or whatever, I'll say, I'm not going to tell you how to do that. You can do it however you want. If you want some ideas, I got some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with my kid, hey, cut the grass. You can do it however you want, but I'm going to give you a couple of things you really need to make sure you do. Otherwise, you're going to regress tremendously.
Yeah, you're getting into one of the subjects that is, I think, pivotal for me. And a learning that I've had over the last 20 years around situational leadership. Yeah. Kim Blanchard's book and approach is we can't be the leader that we want to be or that we've got the natural propensity to be. We have to be the leader that the person needs us to be. And, it's easy to start getting that at the beginning and go, oh, well, that person's new, so they need a different kind of leader than this person over here who has been in their job for 20 years. They need a different type of leader. So I got to be situationally different for those two. That's a starting point. Where it really finishes is, guess what? Each of those people are in different situations every day. Yeah. And some of them fall right within the wheelhouse of what they know, understand, and have knowledge and capability to deal with, and others are brand new. And so you can't go to the person who's learning how to water ski for the first time today and say, great job, you've been at this for 20 years, go get them. Right? That's not the leadership style they need, even though they may have been with you for a period of time.
And you're saying that you that clicked for you, and so kind of an individual take to the different people that you're leading based on what they need.
It's not person level. It's even down at the next level, as situation by situation. So one of the things I've taken on in my one-on-ones and ways of having a conversation with an employee or a leader is, you tell me when we're getting ready to talk about your priorities, where are you with each of those? Are you in the learning stage where you need more directive? You're asking me specifically to say, tell me how to do this.
Right.
Or are you in the stage where you've got it figured out? You're just wanting me to know where things are and let me be aware of how you're taking your next step, so that I can show up as the leader you need in that time. Now, it does one more thing beyond that. It lets me show up as the right leader for you, but it also lets me assess, how are you doing with understanding the situation
you're in? Because I need to know what you know before I can give you any insights. Two things that makes me think of with the Strengths Finder is that I remember learning that the relator seems like a great thing for managing and having a plurality of relations. That makes sense to me because the goal is so organic. I want to care about you, and you're not you, and they're all different people. So you move into those spaces based upon what's required for that interaction. That makes a lot of sense for management, because even the concept you might be able to apply to the situation as well, not just the person, but it's like, I get it. This is different. This is different. This is different. And I can move into it in a different way. One of the strengths that was best for management on the Strengths Finder is called individuality. And it's the person that can look at every situation in a unique fashion and press levers that are totally different in everyone based upon the person in the interaction. And in the book, it talks about the best hotel managers. It might have been for Hilton. There might have been some kind of assessment that they do every year of who are the best managers. And the best managers of all the Hilton hotels had this gift in their top 5, individuality, where the person that wasn't, you have a person that's a leader and they have a grid, and this is what we're doing. We're changing beds over. The checkouts at noon. They have to be done by 2, and check-in is at 3. That's what happens. If you don't fit into that as a human and do what that requires, you're out. And anyone that had that approach had a lower retention rate for employees, had worse results in terms of getting things done on time. The best managers, and they actually interviewed the best manager, and the way that is he talked about 5 different employees. One that liked to get everything done right on time. One that liked to take their time and talk to a lot of people. One that literally would come late to work, but still worked faster than all the other ones. And the fact that he just made it, look, these rooms have to be done by this time. You can do it however you want. If you need to sleep in a little bit, hey, okay, sleep, whatever. The room needs to be done by this time. So some people, he didn't make everybody come in on time. He didn't tell everybody how to do this and that. It just, that's your objective, and every person got to fill it out the way they wanted to. And those were the highest, his was the highest performing on turning over rooms and not turning over employees.
Yeah.
I find that kind of, that's a difficult thing to understand. It takes time because you want to, I don't know, it probably doesn't work in the Army.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is knowing what you're looking for in the role or the project or the job that needs to be filled,
and then not forcing how
aligning people with that for success.
Yeah.
I think one of the cool things about strengths is it's just like anything else in life. It's good in moderation and used appropriately.
Right.
We can overuse our strengths just as easy as we can underuse them. And we need to focus on knowing where those God-given talents are and leveraging them well without over-leveraging them. And then also using that to accentuate our best self.
Yeah.
And you're building teams around those so that you're not asking everybody to do the exact same thing, but you're asking them to show up, use their talents and capabilities in the best way they can.
Did you ever have anybody take the Strengths Finder, get their results, and be really disappointed?
No, because the strengths that you have, the talents and capabilities that you have, don't determine whether you can or can't do a job.
Right, and do a job, yeah.
Right. They're how you're going to go about it and what's going to be the best way for you to show up and be a part of a team.
So if somebody did come and say, oh man, I didn't know this was me and I want to be somebody else, then it was about, you reorient them.
Yeah. And it's ironically enough, when one of those tools is developed. I mean, and I don't know, StrengthsFinder was developed with Gallup, and millions of people behind that study. In fact, to the level where they've said that if you took that at 11 years old and you took it again when you were 25 or 30, the majority of what you said then will still be the same.
Wow, it's
and
big.
So I think the discovery, typically what I find is that when people look at those, they don't find them to be truly different than what they thought about themselves.
Yeah. I had one case where a guy that I was working with, this was like 15 years ago, took the Strengths Finder, and he was just trying to figure out who he was, and he wanted to be, a communicator. He wanted to be a lead pastor. He wanted to be a preacher. And he took the Strengths Finder, and none of his strengths were the typical Strengths Finder strengths that represent, creative communication or command or, whatever. Woo. A lot of woo people are that, his were all these other things. And it was an interesting thing. I was young at the time. I was new to it. But like what I found myself telling him is like, man, it's okay.
That's right.
Like it's okay that this is you and this is great. I didn't have the level that you just added, which I wish I would have had. I didn't have that sophistication to it. I wish I would have said to him, hey, just because one of your strengths is belief, not any of these quintessential, communicator. Everybody wants to be the lead pastor. Everybody thinks that means that, that you're the thing. It's just so not true. You know what I mean? It's just not true. Careful what you wish for. I mean, it's just not the case. But you think, hey, that's at the church, that guy's in charge, so that must mean that doing that is the most important thing that can be done. And it's a sad way of looking at things. So you go, no, man, everything you do, this is your strength. You're going to add value to the world by developing these things. Part of the Strength Finder is, if you're a 7, right, it's 1 to 10. So if you're a natural 2, the whole idea, this was the bombshell for a lot of people. If you're a natural 2 at woo, if you work really, really hard at it, you'll only ever be a 5. You're not going to be really good at winning people over. So develop your strengths, not your weaknesses.
That's right. I mean, and those are within us from the beginning. I think Michael Jordan's one of the great examples used. If you look at his pro career in basketball, phenomenal, right? I mean, was he capable of playing baseball? Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, people give him a hard time, but actually what he did and the amount of time that he did was way above average.
Right.
Not his batting average. His progress for the little amount of time that he spent playing baseball was far beyond anyone else that would put themselves into that type of work. But go ahead.
But when he was in his swim lane,
yes.
Boy, was it amazing.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that's the whole point, is us trying to go through that discovery in life earlier rather than later to figure out where those swim lanes are for us.
I find too, that was an exception. Most people, they read that thing and they go, okay. Because I remember one of the things about it's not field specific. It's just a gift. You can apply it to any field.
Yeah.
You can apply it to any type of scenario or whatever. I found it to be mostly really, really freeing for people. It's a fun thing to do. The other one is the Enneagram. I think I mentioned that to you. That's one you got to look at.
Yeah.
That one is a great, I love what you said about those types of tools though. They give people common language.
That's it.
Communicate. And that's so interesting because the way that I described them until you said that is it helps you know who you are. It helps you know who they are. so that you can do life better, which is not exactly as clear as what you said. It's a tool to help us communicate better so we can accomplish more. I love that. Well, David, is there anything else you want to share about leadership, or just any other thoughts you have that you want to share? Well, your audience here is like most 514 church people.
Yeah. I think we're in a world where we are focused on achievement, right? I mean, it's around us every corner, and we're always looking for the self-help book or the secret tip to success that's going to allow us to be successful. And there's a lot of conversation right now around authenticity too, and what does it mean?
Yep.
We are each uniquely and wonderfully made. I mean, we are given a set of talents that are in us from the beginning. It is in our best interest, and it is in our best ability to have an impact here when we just focus on being authentically who we are.
Yeah.
And there's a cry for that right now.
Yes.
I would say show up, whether you're in the marketplace or whether you're in a relationship with someone in your family or your kids, and be vulnerable enough to be who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Don't be inhibited.
Yeah. And if you're finding yourself, hitting a wall, maybe you don't even know that you're not being yourself. A lot of people putting on the facade, living in that anxious state of trying to measure up, trying to say the right thing, trying to just constantly the wheels turning, and you don't know what that is. Do the work.
That's right.
Go to counseling. Ask God to show you some things. Call it out. That's one of the big things.
Yeah.
Call it out.
Yeah, be yourself is not the ticket to be a slug.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And to not worry about improving.
Exactly. Yes. I find that so important to make the distinction. Be authentic. Okay, I'm going to do whatever I want. No.
Right.
Because that's not that you're not supposed to just do whatever you want.
Right.
So whether you're authentic or not, that's not okay. You have to grow, you have to get better, and part of it is being able to be authentic, but you can't do that without knowing yourself, figuring that stuff out. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. I learned a lot. Also with David. David, after being at the church for a year, he's on the board here at 514 Church, adding wisdom and perspective for all kinds of things, and the organization and the finances of the church. So thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, pleasure, Joel. And, it's an incredible staff. I gotta take 2 seconds and give some gratitude for last night's worship service.
Yes.
Wow.
Last night we had a worship service here at the church on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, the team's amazing. If you haven't had a chance to check out the latest cut, what an amazing group of talented folks that we have here.
Absolutely.
And the freedom, Joel, for them to actually operate within their strengths.
Yes. Big deal in church, to say we're going to have people with real talent and pipes and ability to lead and do what they do. It just kind of makes everything else go away. It really takes you to a place of worship.
Yeah.
That's part of what does that. When something's done with excellence, it becomes transcendent. It helps you so you can go where they're trying to lead you to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. And Joel, thank you for your leadership too.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. I've learned a lot from you and look forward to learning more. Thank you, everyone that's listening. This is The Rest, and we'll see you soon.